What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I wanted to talk about the one and only NIO stock and give you guys my future outlook on the share price of NIO. Talk about what could end up happening to the share price for the next couple of months going into the end of the year, and what factors will affect NIO's share price. Will NIO actually squeeze this year, or will it continue to chop for the rest of the year? Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any details, I got to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, one of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 2 weeks, so please check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at SPY and NIO back and forth, side by side, you guys could notice something very interesting. So NIO on this side actually ended up coming down pretty hard throughout the day, down over 6%. I did mention to you guys that I did see NIO actually coming down below 20. I said this like 2 days ago. I was mentioning this, and I know a lot of people did not like to hear that, but I did talk about why the SPY would end up coming down given everything going on from the FOMC meeting. And if you look at SPY, it was also coming down, and this is what we ended up seeing. So both of them are starting to come down a bit. And if you look at the current setups right now, NIO is looking like we got another rejection very close to the 200 EMA. We're starting to come down to this 13 EMA mark on the daily. But we also have this gap right about here, which could actually bring NIO down to the 19s. And it does look like it might end up getting filled for NIO. So for the short term, yes, NIO does look a little bit bearish. However, it's not the end of the world, because remember, we have the FOMC meeting coming up on the 21st. Depending on what the Fed does, the market could rally. All right. So if we get a 75 basis point rate hike, right, the market already kind of like priced this in already. We've already priced it in, and we're starting to price in 100 basis points. It's very unlikely that we're actually going to get 100 basis points. We're more likely to get the 75 basis point hike. So with that said, it's more likely that the market starts to rip a bit, at least after the FOMC meeting, but maybe not immediately after. I would say as we approach the midterms. Look at the cycle. As midterm elections come, we tend to get a big rally as we approach November in the USA because midterms are approaching. Now, the real question is, okay, we know that NIO could drop a bit. We know NIO might start to run to the upside after the September 21st date. We might slowly start to push up. Then we'd probably get a big rally near the middle of October up until like November. So it looks like that. But what's going to happen after November? The first thing to note is that after the election, there could be a drop depending on what politicians want to do. If they want to blame one party or another, there's a possibility of that happening. Not guaranteeing it though. But another big factor would be the global situations in Europe, not to mention in China with Taiwan. So that's going to be a big factor, especially for NIO. But as of right now, I can't say too much about these things because they have not happened yet. Right? The elections are still happening. We don't know yet. I can't say much about global situations yet until they actually happen. But considering what's going on in the world right now, they are important, but they're just not as huge as the factor of inflation. Inflation is very big, and this will definitely affect NIO because NIO is trading very similar to the overall market. Not exactly the same, but very similar. And because of that, if inflation remains high, the US markets could actually still shop around the way they are because the Fed would still have to be hawkish. And unless inflation starts to come down as the year ends, then the market could kind of continue to see improvement. So breaking this down, 8.3% was the latest CPI that came out. If you look at the recent data, we're seeing CPI just going on this uptrend. It's just going crazy. It's like a wildfire. And we're waiting for this to actually start to come down. And we so far are not there yet. It still went up. It would have gone up in August if it wasn't for the gas prices actually kind of coming down. So if those didn't go down, CPI would have exploded. It would have been closer to 9%, in my opinion. It would have been very bad. But food, electricity, shelter, utilities, all these things went up in inflation. Everything did except for gas, essentially. So the Fed has all these meetings coming up. There's another one in December. What happens to NIO and the market depends on inflation as well. And we're going to kind of pretend that that's like the number one factor. Let's just assume that we don't get like a invasion of Taiwan this year or anything like that. And there aren't additional major factors of what would happen to the two major possibilities. So for NIO, please note we have two gaps down here. In the future, these gaps could get filled if something big happens to the market. Now, for SPY, let me show you guys something else in SPY real quick. Uh, when you look at SPY on the daily, all right, SPY also has gaps down here. There's one at 376. There's another one at in the 360s basically. So will the gaps get filled, soon? It doesn't look like it yet. Maybe this one could, but the one down here, I'm not sure about that. However, for SPY, could we fill the gaps during this time frame between like November and December, especially as an FOMC meeting is coming? It's possible, but that would depend on global situations and inflation. Because if inflation is starting to go down and we don't get some major global conflict and a lot of improvements start to be made around the world, we could actually start to rip as the end of the year comes, kind of like this. You guys see this? It's possible, but it depends on inflation. So let me go over the two main possibilities. We're just going to talk about inflation and assume every other factor is almost the same. So let's assume that NIO comes down, we fill this gap back down to the 19s, but then FOMC comes and the Fed is like, oh, we're going to raise the federal funds rate by 75 basis points. Well, the market priced that in already, so we could get a nice reaction. Maybe it takes a little bit of time for about a week, and slowly the chop slows down going into like the second week of October. Then all of a sudden NIO and the remainder of the market start to rally with SPY, and NIO actually rips just like this all the way up to that maybe like that 24, 25 range going into like the midterm election right here. Very possible possibility, guys. Very possible. Now the question is, this depends on the Fed as well. If the Fed gives us 100 basis points, then NIO could come down like to this range, trade kind of like sideways, and slowly push up into this end as well. But let's just say that they give us 75 basis points. The market could actually hold up and improve a lot, and NIO might get a nice bounce after that. Now, where NIO goes depends on CPI. NIO could get a big bounce followed by a bit of a drop a little bit after, but let's just say hypothetically, CPI starts going down, inflation starts dropping really hard. Hypothetically, guys, around November going into December, NIO could now start pushing up like this. If the whole market is ready to start recovering, it is possible for NIO to rip going into the end of the year and have a nice move all the way back to the high 20s, if not 30s. It is possible if the market is super bullish going to the end of the year if CPI comes down, right? Now, if we assume all factors are the same with the Fed not being as hawkish, the market responding the same way, but then after the midterm election, let's just say the market drops like this. I'm going to give you guys another possibility. What's going to happen now is, ignoring all other factors, if CPI continues to be high, if inflation keeps soaring in the USA, if we get a big read and the market takes a big hit, if it keeps soaring going into like November, December, NIO and the market could start coming down like this, guys. We could come back to this like $20 area, try to bounce off of it. But if we get a big crash, because remember, the SPY has those gaps back in the 360s, the SPY could still make new lows. It's still possible, right? It's very possible. It is possible for NIO to come down and fill this gap around $17. Maybe go as low as the 17 flat. Now, do we have more gaps down here? If we do, it is possible for us to go lower. I'm not going to actually talk about those just yet because I don't want to be too hawkish. I just want to inform you should be prepared for potential downside in the markets like here, levels like this, maybe even lower than this. If we get a big crash, guys, it's still possible. And then after that, going to next year, if CPI does finally start to subside, starts to go down, then NIO could continue to rally. So these are the two main possibilities. And the thing about NIO is, do we have more gaps? It does look like we have gaps all the way down to like the 13s. I mean, gaps they tend to get filled. Almost always they do, but they don't always get filled, right? There's a difference. So if the market and CPI really start to improve, then it is possible for NIO to just push up and not even worry about those gaps. If, you know, we see CPI come down, I'm sorry, it continues to go up, if it's like really, really bad, we could see something like this, and NIO could go even lower than this, guys. It could happen. I know you don't like to hear this. I know it's really bad. I know exactly how you feel, but it is the uncomfortable truth. And you have to look at this as another opportunity to dollar cost average to the downside, right? You should not look at this as like a bad opportunity. These are good opportunities. So, anyways, the main thing for you guys is to be prepared for either one of these possibilities, depending on what the market does. Be prepared to see NIO drop even lower if something bad happens, like Taiwan gets invaded, for example, or if something happens in Europe due to the supply chain constraints, not to mention the energy crisis over there. And maybe CPI continues to just go up and up and up to double digits. That could also be another factor that causes NIO to drop like this with the overall market. Please be ready, guys. All right. Now, if CPI starts coming down and there's no like Taiwan invasion, we could start to just rip and not even worry about those gaps, just like this. Both of these are possible. So, your job as an investor, if you're a trader as well, is to be prepared for this. Do what you have to do. Study the charts, study where you want to start buying in. If you want to, non-financial advice, by the way, do what you have to do and remain calm, cool, and collected, guys. Remember, one last thing. Right now, the market is not running on fundamentals. Otherwise, NIO would be exploding right now because they're doing so well fundamentally. The market is running based off news, based off in a very unison way, based off data, based off CPI, based off global conflicts and resources and commodity issues. Those are what are driving the market right now for the time being. But for the long term, for many years to come, guys, for 2024, 2023, maybe starting like during that time, 2025, 2026, fundamentals are going to be the king. And companies with strong fundamentals are the ones, in my opinion, that are going to do very well. And that's when we're really going to see NIO explode to new all-time highs. It could still happen. With that said and done, guys, thank you all so much for listening. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. And I will most definitely see you guys in the next video. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still very bright. And peace out.